And just like the stylized human blockout with all the dynameshing and sculpting we were doing, you can do the same thing with the robot. I don't feel like just because you're doing something robotic, you have to stay with hard surface. You can still get your ideas out using whatever techniques you want. And once you do that with your techniques, you go through and you clip and you stamp alphas and you do all this work and you Boolean dynamesh, all that good stuff. There's always ways to rebuild your object. Now, there's more elegant ways to go about it, and once you learn and get everything under your belt problem-solving wise, you'll be able to make good decisions as you create, save you a little time in the long run. But in the short term, and really the most important thing is being able to get your idea out and then make it a good one, and then everything past that point is just technique. So, having said all that, we've got one subtool here. And we have dynamic turned on, so I do Shift D. It's going to be the real geometry. So really, we're only working with about 1,600 points. Super, super lightweight. Then we can hit D again. That'll turn dynamic back on underneath here. Let's say I want to beef up this chess piece a little bit, and I don't feel like box modeling it. So what I'm going to do is hold down Control Shift. I'm going to isolate just this. Well, looks like we got the same polygroup here. Control Shift. I'm going to drag over a little portion of that box. Do Control Shift A, and then I'm going to split hidden. So now the chest is on by itself. I'll move this down underneath just because that's the way I am. You don't really need to do that. And then under your dynamic subdivisions here, I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. So those are real subdivisions now. And because it's nice and smooth, I'm just going to go into my Dynamesh here and turn off blur, and we're just going to Dynamesh this thing. Now, just like when you're with our humanoid character, you don't want to over crank your Dynamesh, but I will say on like hard surface stuff, if you are going to keep it nice and clean, don't be afraid to have a little higher resolution. When you're doing organic stuff, it is nice to kind of get your sketch done first and then go to higher resolutions while you're doing details. But since hard surfaces kind of need hard angles, a higher resolution isn't a big deal. So first off, right off the bat, I noticed that this chess piece here kind of has an arm going into it. So what I'm going to do is Alt-tap this other subtool here, and I'm going to take this arm, hold down Control-Shift, grab Select Lasso. We're going to grab that entire arm, Control-Shift-A. We're going to split this off. And the reason I'm doing that is what I want to do with this arm is I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to hold down Shift, shoot it to the top. Alt-tap the chest, shoot it to the top. And I'm going to use this arm duplicate as a subtractive so I can cut a hole in here. And really, on this arm duplicate, I don't even need all of that. I just need this inside little cylinder here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a delete hidden. And then if, you know, this part of the arm is going in here, and if I want it to kind of sit inside of there, I'm going to have to expand it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, under the polygroups menu, group by normals, and then I'm going to do a quick mirror and weld under geometry modified topology, and then under QMesh polygroup all, I'm going to start QMeshing this out, and I'm going to hold down Shift just to pull along that surface normal, and that's going to kind of inflate it along that surface normal just a bit. Now, if I was to Dynamesh this down, this would lose its dynamic subdivisions because this Dynamesh doesn't have dynamic subdivisions on. So what I need to do is with this one selected, I'm going to go to my dynamic subdivisions. I'm going to apply those subdivisions. I'm going to say you are subtractive. I'm going to take our Dynamesh object right here. I'm going to merge this down. I can use my hotkey, or I can just say merge down, and then I can re-Dynamesh just by control dragging, and now I've sliced out a big hole there, and now this will fit right inside that hole. Now, you know, again, we're not doing any live booleans, and once we get there, you'll have a lot of fun with that. Let me switch over to Smooth Stronger here. And but in the meantime, you can still kind of fake it. You can go in here and you can be like, you know what, eventually I'm going to want to bevel here. And like I said before, you can always figure out how to rebuild these masses, but sometimes you just want to get in here and get your ideas out quickly and not be overly concerned about, you know, how do I get this to smooth correctly and box model it. One more kind of awkward situation right here is where the arm kind of clips up into here. So what I'm going to do is just control drag over here, or Control Shift, Control drag Alt, so I can do this, and then just with this mass, I'm just going to Z-scale this in, and then go to the middle and kind of Z-scale this in as well. Let's go ahead and mask it. You know what else? Also turn off perspective. That will mess you up big time when you're doing hard surface stuff. So generally speaking, with perspective turned on, that's a dangerous game to play when you're doing hard surface stuff. So I've got this in here, and I'm just going to use like trim dynamic and just re-Dynamesh as I go, and I'm just going to cut this in. You could have used booleans or something, but again, I'm just kind of lazy. So we've got that cut up and on. Now, again, we can use, if we want to, I'm going to hit Control W, make this all in polygroup. I'm going to go in here and do a slice curve. And let's put a little more visual interests in like the panels of this thing. And again, I'm not going through here in box modeling. Let's turn off the lines. And let's say I want a line to like come down through here and then through the middle. And if, okay, that's another thing too. While you're since you know how to poly paint here, let's go into our standard brush. Let's turn on RGB, turn off Z-add, and let's grab a kind of a dark gray. Well, first with the white, you can just turn colorize on, and then you can select a dark gray. And now you can just go through here and you can just draw like where you might want panels to be. So you can kind of ideate, and you can hold down Shift if you want to. If you have lazy mouse turned on, it'll snap. If you are more accustomed to not having that and you just want to use Shift functionality, you can just hold down Shift with lazy mouse turned off, just tap L, and then you can go around your object and you can kind of draw in like where it might be cool to have panels or something like that. But I think for now what I'm going to do is just like cut through here and then cut up and then cut across. You know, we'll keep this simple, and then maybe down through here we'll do the opposite or something like that. So this is where I want to cut my panels at. So I'm going to go turn on my polyframe again with the lines turned off, hold down Control Shift, we'll go into Slice, Perspective Off. I'm going to slice through here, and then we're going to slice, well, while we slice through here, let's go ahead and Dynamesh this again, but this time we're going to turn groups on. We're going to Control Shift Drag, and then I'm going to Control Shift tap this one, go to the side here, we'll go ahead and slice through here, and then we'll Dynamesh this, and we'll select this one, slice through here, bring everything back, Dynamesh this, and then isolate this one, slice through here, bring everything back, Dynamesh, grab this one, slice through here, Dynamesh. So now all of these pieces, go back to select rectangle and grab this one, this one, this one, invert, Control W, invert that, Control W. So now this whole side is all sliced out, but the other side, because slice doesn't go across X symmetry, isn't. So I'm going to do a quick mirror, mirror and weld, and now both sides are the same. It looks like I got to do a little bit of cleanup here. No big deal. I'm going to hold down Control Shift, slice. We're going to isolate this one. We're going to slice through here, and let's do that again so we can see a better polygroup. There we go. So we got a polygroup here. Bring everything back. We'll go ahead and do groups turned on. Let's go ahead and isolate this. And it's a little bit awkward back here. Really all I need is this little piece right here. So I'll go ahead and Dynamesh this with groups turned on. And I'll Dynamesh that. So now if I do a quick mirror, mirror and weld, I've got a little separate piece right here. So now this separate piece, I'm going to shoot it to the top, or, you know, I'm going to isolate this one, and then we're going to grab this one, hit Control W, and then this one here, and this one, Control W. And if you want this bottom piece to be its own thing, you can. It's not terrible. You know what? So I think I'm going to keep it. So all three of these are now separate pieces. So this one, and this one. I realized this was kind of messy. Whenever you're cutting around a circular object in this kind of detail, it can kind of get a little messy. Usually on boxier objects, it's a little bit more straightforward. So this was a little bit of an extreme case. But you know what? We did okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off polyframe here. And I'm sorry, turn off poly paint, turn off polyframe. Go ahead and grab a white color here. So now we have three separate objects. To make this a little bit easier to work on, I'm going to go ahead and do a split, group split. So now all of these pieces are separate. So now I can just go through and like Alt tap them. And again, because it was a little bit low resolution, you're going to get some artifacting, but that's okay. And you can actually go through here and just smooth out these transitions on each of these. And you're going to see it's going to like separate into a nice panel. And we can do nicer stuff eventually. You got to wait for it. We'll get there. There's a lot of cool tools, but this again is just ideation and getting your ideas out quickly. I'm going to clean this up a little bit with our clip brush here. I'm going to go back in here and just clip this across. Redynamesh, there we go. And if you want to, you can go through here and you can like clip, and we'll tap Alt once and then Alt twice. You can kind of clip down. You can even go in here and say like mask this out. And you know what, let's grab that mask curve and we'll just mask this. And I'm going to hold down Alt, and we can just push this in, and you can use inflate and all that good stuff if you want to. Or you know what, we can just pull this straight up. Let's do that. Let's pull this up, so it's going to kind of go up, and maybe a little bit out as well. We'll just redynamesh, so this will be like a little kind of handle pull out. And then for this thing here, I'm going to go through, and I'm going to clip, And you can even go in here and you can clean this up if you need to. I mean, again, we're just, we're getting our ideas out, but it's a little bit easier if you go in and rebuild if it's a little bit more accurate as to what you're looking for here. And we can even go into our standard brush here. We can say, give me a drag rect. And in our alphas, we'll just grab a rectangle alpha, and you can use alpha stamps if you want to. Let's go turn on our Z-add back on, and let's take our focal shift to -100. In fact, actually, you know what? What I should do is keep that focal shift at 0, go back to turn your alpha off and dot stroke, take your standard brush, clone it off, and that way you'll have a clone. It's called standard 1, so when you go in your brush menu, it's standard 1. And now you can always go back to your standard brush, and then you have a little clone here that you can do stuff like this with. So you can make your focal shift whatever, you can make your Z intensity whatever, and you don't have to constantly go back and do anything like that. And we're eventually going to get into making our own custom alphas and alpha brushes. But I'm just going to, for now, just grab one of these things that I've made. And don't worry, we'll get there. So you can go through here and just kind of detail this out a little bit. And this is actually fairly inefficient. There's better brushes now. Or you can make alpha brushes. We'll get to that. I'm just kind of using these as kind of an older example. But you can go through here and kind of get that kind of old school look. And you can always feel free to re-dynamesh. All of these things have dynamesh turned on. You can go in here and you can insert mesh brush. So we can go, let's say it's going to solo mode for this one here. I'm going to grab a cylinder. And let's say I want to put like a little shield on the back here, so I'm going to go ahead and split mask points, turn our line back on, I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and I'm going to grab all of this off, and we're going to say delete hidden, geometry modified topology delete hidden. Same thing for this top, and same thing for this bottom, just delete hidden, and then we can Q mesh this out. And then we can reset our... And whenever we get into deformers, let's do a little sneak peek here. I'm going to go into my deformer here. I'm going to do a bend arc, and I'm going to bend this arc out just a little bit more. So we haven't gotten there yet, but that's the deformers are really, really powerful. Kind of get these verts into shape here. Oh, you know what? And also, let's go ahead and do a mirror and weld and have X symmetry turned on because it's going to be symmetrical here. And let's go ahead and drag these down, make this a little bit more interesting on the back here. And I'm doing this on the fly. I'm hoping something cool turns up, but if not, just consider this just demonstration. Do something cooler than this. So anyway, we can kind of square this top off and maybe make this a little more angular, or whatever we want to do. I can go into solo mode here. I can run a crease tolerance here and hit D for dynamic. And if I want to, I can say, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's crease this here. And also, let's build a little bit of a fatter lip here. So I'm going to insert single edge loop. And if I hold down Shift when I insert, you see how it's going to be curved. But if I hold down Shift, it's going to inherit that bottom straight. So that can be a little bit useful. I'm going to go into transparency mode. I'm going to do slide edge loop complete. And we'll slide this up while holding down Shift. And let's go ahead and insert another single edge loop here. And let's mark these. And let's do Q mesh. And then I'm going to take this edge here, and we're going to do mask edge, and we're going to mask this edge, invert that, and we're going to pull this down. Maybe something like this. We'll run another crease, hit dynamic, and clean these corners up a little bit. And again, you can just kind of leave this here, but if you want to integrate this into your object here, you can shoot it to the top, hold down Alt, shoot this one to the top. And then I'm going to duplicate this off because I'm going to undo this. I'm going to show you just why in just a second. But I'm going to isolate just these two so we can look at them. And then this one I'm going to merge down. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I apply those dynamic subdivisions so that when I merge these down, I can do that. I can control drag. Now they're dynamesh together. And it looks like I got a little artifacting. That's okay. Let me just smooth that out. Oh, you know what? You know why? We had groups turned on. Turn groups off. And then because we had a weird poly group here, so I wanted to group that. So we can merge these together, and then now it looks like it's one really complex shape. So remember, you can use dynamesh to make complex Boolean shapes, and you can still go in here and you can still clean up this design if you want to. You can turn everything else back on, and we'll turn this one off for now. That's all right. It's not great, but it's something different. You get the idea, just kind of utilizing these things. Now we can also take this back plate here and we can maybe pop this in, You know what, let's shrink this down a little bit. So it's kind of like a, I don't know, doubled up on his armor back here. Now for this one, we can keep this one separate, but let's say we still want to Dynamesh this, and also let's say we want to like round these corners out. So I'm going to hover over an edge. We're going to go to crease edge, hold down Alt, and that'll kind of round these corners out just a bit. And if I like that, but I still want to sculpt on it, again, just apply, turn off groups, just re-Dynamesh this, or just Dynamesh it. And then we can go ahead, and now we can go in here with maybe our clay brush, or you know what, we'll still use our standard brush. We'll do drag dot alpha, crank up that Z intensity, focus shift down to -100. We'll punch in a couple areas where we can put in some bolts or some rivets or something, then brush insert. Let's go to model toolkit, hit M. Let's go ahead and grab these fasteners here. And if we want to make them all the same size, we'll make them the same brush size here. So we're going to hold drag out and then hold down Control, and we'll just drag these all out, and then we're going to isolate this, Control Shift A, split hidden, and then we'll go ahead and turn all this on. So now we've got the robot guy with some detail on him and bolts and stuff. So remember, you don't have to sit here and just box model everything. Oh, you know what, this isn't even the right version. I forgot I had inset these and put in the bolts on the side there, but you'll remember that from that video. But you can do lots of really cool, fun stuff. You know, you can clip and slice and everything you've learned up to this point. You can apply it to hard surface stuff just for blockout purposes, as well as, you know, figure stuff and humanoid and creature stuff as well. Actually, just a few more things I want to talk about, because I was watching the editing of this thing and I was like, you know what, people might find some of this stuff interesting. So you can also remember, we can go into our model toolkit, BI brush insert model toolkit, and if you wanted to put like a handle on him, even if it's going to be embedded in him, you can go ahead and drag that off, and it's just going to be a handle. You can control drag again, and that'll go ahead and put like a little handle on there. And you can even do that, say with this one now, with this thin piece, you're going to want to make sure if you hold down Control, let's go back to mask pin, and let's go down to auto masking, and it's still holding down Control, turn on backface, because if you hold down Control and turn on backface, doesn't seem to be, with backface off, it's going to want to mask through your object. With backface on, holding down Control, it won't. So even back here, you can say hold down Control, invert that by Control tapping, and then you can just pull this stuff out. Control drag, and then you can mask the inside of this, invert that, and you can just push these together. Control drag, you can smooth this out. Because it's just Dynamesh, you can go in here with your trim dynamic and just make a really quick handle that way as well. Again, you can always refine this later, but just wanted to bring up a couple different methods there.